What does chess have to do with gimbals?
The road and hopefully get the shot that we're after.
I've been shooting 3-axis gimbals for a really long time, with the Ronin S being my first, and the current setup is the Ronin 4 Pro combo kit, and I've used them in projects really spanning the world. What I want to do here is show you everything that you really need to know about how to use a gimbal, from balancing to methods and techniques that I apply in a day-to-day basis with these devices. And one of the key things that I want to teach you here is visualizing and understanding scenes from action to action and the best way to really be able to achieve them. And this is where chess comes in. More on that a little bit later. This video here has been shot over the course of pretty much the start of this channel, as it's really the best way to kind of give you a bunch of different methods from a bunch of different shoots and a bunch of different styles in a bunch of different ways. I hope you enjoy. The last thing that I want to mention is that this video is chaptered, so if you have already learned something, for example balancing, just skip on to the next chapter. First things first is how to balance your gimbal. A lot of people don't necessarily know how to balance their gimbal properly, and hopefully I'm actually going to balance my gimbal properly at the moment. Step 1. Understanding pitch, roll and yaw. Step 2. Make sure that your camera is on the gimbal. Lock it in and unlock the pitch, aka the tilt axis. When it comes to this axis, you need to make sure that you are changing the location of the camera in 2 axes, backwards and forwards and up and down. This is the only axis that you actually need to do this on. Move it until it is balanced. You tell this by the fact that the camera does not move, and when you move it about on the axis, it doesn't move. Ideal. Step 3. The roll axis. Make sure that the pitch axis is locked and you've unlocked the roll axis. What you do next is move it left and right until it is balanced. You can tell it is balanced in the same way you can tell the pitch is balanced. Step 4. The pan axis, the yaw. Make sure the other axes are locked off here, and all you need to do is move it backwards and forwards until it's balanced. The best way to tell it's balanced is moving the gimbal onto its side, holding it with one hand, and then making sure that it doesn't go forward or backwards. That way you can tell it's balanced. Bonus tip here is to make sure that you calibrate your gimbal before you use any new lenses and when you actually start using it for a shoot. Well done, give yourself a little pat on the back. You've now got a fully functional gimbal. Now, how do you handle it?
Light it up, pedal to the metal. We're gonna take it to a whole nother level tonight.
We've got this side handle and then the back handle here as well. This is kind of like a base layout for how you should use your gimbals in general. So the top handle here allows you to do the underslung mode a lot easier, and then this tripod here allows you to put it on the floor and make sure that you can put it down in between using it. It also gives you an extended, more comfortable grip. When you're using a gimbal, make sure you keep yourself nice and loose. Don't stay stiff, because if you stay stiff, you end up adding extra shake. If you hold it as light as possible, I'm actually barely putting any pressure on the gimbal itself, and I'm just literally holding it up. And then you can actually create smooth movements, okay? If you've got this handle on the side of it, this is how you steer. You don't steer with your wrist down here, you steer with the handle itself. This allows you to do a lot easier and a lot better fluid motions. When it comes to walking, walk with intent. So you've got the, like, stiffen yourself up and then try and walk as lightly as possible. This will allow you to be able to move around a subject a little bit better. This switch right here is important to know. You got your PF, your PTF and your FPV. Now I'm filming with the FPV. Do you see the gimbal's movements there? Basically it allows me to get more dynamic movements. In slow motion it looks really good if you're moving fast enough. 3, 2, 1, go. And then of course you got this one right here, which follows up and down, but doesn't go like wonky. It does that as well, see? So that's your basic movements. You can do a bunch of different really quite cool things with them. Let's get to something that's going to be quite cool, shall we? Okay, so I'm going to use Tyler now as the model just to get some B-roll of the A6700. It's going to be really cool to see what this like setup can do effectively. However, if you're doing a simple tracking shot, then PF is probably your best because which is just that axis, doesn't move up and down like that. So what's going to happen is I'm kind of going to do an arc around you. All right. I want you to start facing off that way, swing your jacket round as you turn round and give dead eyeball straight to the camera. Something to bear in mind, especially when you're on longer focal lengths, is the sensitivity of the actual gimbal. I've dropped it down to custom 20 speed. That's because I'm going to be moving around him at a fairly big distance, and when it comes to using a longer focal length, the background's going to look a bit crazier when you do an orbit shot, or when you're thinking about chess, I'm thinking this is more of like a night shot, so the way in which I move around the subject I'm shooting. With this in mind, you can really start thinking about how different focal lengths start affecting the different shots that you have. For example, using tighter lenses means when you rotate around someone, it moves faster. However, when you are like following them, the background moves slower, and then it's vice versa with the wider shots then, in that retrospect. Here is a bunch of shots that I took with Doe & Co, and kind of explains that. You got one, which is a bishop, you got another, a rook, the queen, the knight, and then a pawn. So with this, you can really describe clearly what you're looking to get out of a single movement. So a rook movement is straight, it's to the point, it's tracking side by side with a model or pulling into a model. It's a movement which is clear cut and easy to understand. A bishop is where you move at a diagonal to the model, where they may be moving a rook movement towards the camera. You may be using the bishop movement to kind of go around them. The knight is a great option for a curved movement, so when you're doing circular movements around a subject. These ways of thinking are a great way to really build out an understanding with who you're working with. And then the pawn is a smaller movement, handheld movement. Something that is simple, but it doesn't necessarily have to be as grandiose. Now, here's 3 main tips that I would have people that are looking to get into using a gimbal. Number 1 is don't be afraid to move. I find people with gimbals tend to be very static in their movement because it's a stabilisation platform, but it's a movement platform. That's one thing that I feel is missed out a lot when it comes to people talking about gimbals. Number 2, understand the capabilities of your gear. Use S&Q functionality in your camera to do slow motion, or use it to do hyperlapse motion. For example, lowering the shutter and using it as a hyperlapse movement allows you to create scenes with maybe a little bit more emotion, a little bit more artsy style, or just smooth and just really cool movements. Hopefully I've still got those shots, in which I'll put them up now. And number 3, understand the different modes of the actual gimbal itself. The PF, the PTF, and the FPV modes. These will allow you to get different styled shots and things that are ultimately very different. So today on Does It Gimbal, the 200 to 800. Should we see if we can get some shots with that? I think we shall. Gonna see if we can get a shot of Tyler down the street with this on a gimbal. It's a little bit wobbly when it needs to be, but you've got to have it in the right situation and it should be all right. I'm gonna see if I can attract Tyler walking across the road. Let's see if we can do it. Actually, might go around the corner. What do you reckon? Too busy? Go around the corner? St. Mary's?
I'd love to go up on the wall up there, but we probably won't be able to do that. So maybe we can just...
I think if we time it, we should be alright.
Yeah.
Okay, so the goal is to get Tyler crossing the crossing down there with the 800mm. I do want to try it with the 2x teleconverter as well, but I think that might be a bit too much. So let's give it a go, shall we? Balancing long telephotos can really get you some powerful looking shots. However, I'm going to actually show you how to balance zoom lenses, as it's done a little bit differently from the prime lens that I showed you earlier. When it comes to zoom lenses, what you need to make sure is that the lens is set to the middle focal length. This will allow you to actually balance the gimbal, like I showed you before, and still maintain control. If you're going a wider angle or a tighter angle, it'll work pretty much fine. You basically got to find the point in which the lens is extended halfway out of the barrel. If it doesn't extend out of the barrel, you still need to get it to that kind of average focal length in the center to make sure that you have the cleanest shots possible. When you're first initially planning out your movements, your chest movements, when it comes to like working with models and creating scenes, you need to really analyze your environment. So what do you see here that we can use? The best kind of construction of a simple narrative, and analyze that entire environment and see what's the best way of using it, what kind of shots you can get, and what things you can do a little bit differently. When it comes to gimbal movements, you can move fast to be able to create action, we can move slow to be able to create subtle movement. With that, I managed to get a really cool movement with Kunzo. Hitting the water towards the camera, allowing me to transition nice. The way I described that to her on the shoot was actually using a rook movement with her staying central to kind of give an idea as to kind of where my movements were at the time. And this way of using chess in your mind and the way in which you describe it to your models, it's a really great way to be able to, one, maximize your potential of the scenes in which you create and ultimately allow you to get a lot more. This is a really important skill to learn for run and gun filmmakers, especially, is imagining the pieces on the board, where you can move them, what objects are around us to best be able to get the most creative and intriguing looking shot. You can tell a story in a room if you have the right method behind it. This became super useful during my wedding career, but also just shooting scenes and shooting with models throughout anything that I've ever done, and it's an important skill to be able to visualize, truly visualize your area.
I'm Kunzo, I'm 23 years old. I am currently Swansea based and I like to do a little bit of dance.
You two here, so introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Saula.
And I'm Lewis.
With Kunzo. Amazing. So we got a pretty interesting shoot today. We're going to get some pretty awesome video and photo with this. Amazing. Today we're going to be doing some epic gimbal stuff. That is going to be one of the main things we actually do today. The weather is absolutely awful, so we picked a prime day to do this, but I'm incredibly excited. We're going to do some really cool stuff. This is on a different day to when I shot that footage. But again, when you're in a situation and you're approaching a new location, it's really good to kind of assess what you have around here. So as you can see, this is a wide angle lens I've got on here now. What do we have here that we can use? On that day, it was raining quite a bit. So what I wanted to do is use some of the water that was coming down from the trap. And over here, there was pretty much a waterfall going on. And then with that, I managed to get a really cool movement. Okay, so we're going to start off today with doing just a simple catwalk with the video. I'm going to put this in 120p to get some really cool slow motion whilst we're doing this. Action, badassness, and let's let this guy go past because he looks excited. Comes to creating movements with the subject that you're doing, try different iterations and make it a little bit more complex the further you go along. Makes it a little bit easier. So at the moment I'm shooting this at 120 frames in 4K. So I'm looking for fast movement to be able to get that slow motion looking cool. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so when it comes to health and safety, we are bang on point. We've got an apple, we got mud all over the place, water. But what this is really good for is reflections. So I'm just going to check to see what the reflection looks like, see what we can work with. We'll do the catwalk again. Saule, if you want to come over here, it's Saule. Saule? Saula. Saula. So I'm going to come past here, okay, like this. You're going to stand here, and then you're going to come down and look into the camera when I go past here, okay? Okay, amazing. When you're doing these sort of like small little fashion videos, it's good to have like little interactions or little scenes that you can play out. So what I want you guys to do is I'm gonna come back here and go in between you, okay? When I go in between you, I want you guys just to kind of like pose together but facing opposite directions. So your body. Of course, this method of shooting with a gimbal is very much something that I've come up with myself, and you're free to create any simplified method for you to be able to do it. I think using chest movements to describe scenes that you can create is actually something that can be used pretty much universal. So in the wedding industry, but also when you're working with models as well, you can really kind of describe the best movements for the situation in which you're in. So at the moment we're in one of the arcades in Cardiff, and we're going to be using Kunzo with some dresses. Say hey Kunzo! And it's going to be quite a fun shoot all in all, and I'm going to just have Kunzo just on this balcony bit here. I'm going to do some pass through using a kind of like rook movement just down these stairs right here in order to get some cool flowy dress kind of shots and just kind of go with the flow with this today, to be honest with you. Anyway, I'm going to leave this camera rolling whilst we do it and hopefully get some good shots. Let's start, shall we? If you like this video, make sure you like, follow, subscribe if you want to see more. Have a good day.